A very good morning to you and Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters as you commemorate this amazing day. And I've seen every TikTok, you people, especially Canvas. There's a notorious video that is making rounds where we are now alimas. Assalamu alaikum. I don't know what it is that you guys are doing, but you know what? It's in the same spirit of sharing and having an amazing time and celebrating one another. So Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. Good morning to the rest of you all and welcome to your world. And I know it's Friday and usually Friday is boom boom twaf, but today it's a bit different because we're having an amazing conversation about something that affects each and every one of us. On the 22nd of March, every single year, the world commemorates water. It's a World Water Day on the 22nd of March every single year. And because it falls on a Sunday, we are having this conversation today. We mark the day today right here on Your World. And the theme this year is quite interesting considering that International Women's Day fell on the 8th of March, which was on a Sunday, and the World Water Day also falls on a Sunday of the same month. And the theme this year for World Water Day is water and gender. See what I mean? And the slogan for this year is where water flows, equality flows. And this is just a powerful reminder that access to water is not just a basic need. It's deeply, deeply connected to gender equality. And we're just going to get right into that to just understand what is the correlation. Where are we at as a country when it comes to water and gender and how it affects more women than it affects men. And we'll understand why it is so. And in this day and age, why are we still talking about that and why haven't we moved past that? But having this conversation with us this morning is two amazing women who have stepped up to, and I know they said, you know what, I know it's on a Sunday, but we're going to have it today. And introducing, and you know how we start immediately. On my left, we have Terry Maindo, who is Gender Coordinator, Care Kenya. Lovely to have you on the show. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
And right next to Terry, we have June Samo, who's a Program Director, Rapid Plus Millennium Water Alliance. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to have you on the show. I came across some very worrying data, and I'm sure probably you'll get to it, but let me just share a bit of that. And there's a lot. But this particular one, I think, just sat with me. And it was about the impact of water, especially when it comes to children. And it says that nearly 1,000 children under 5 die daily from unsafe water sanitation and hygiene. And it continues to say that we have over 2 billion people globally who lack access to safe drinking water, with 3.4 billion living without a safely managed situation. And cannot take away the woman from this conversation. So I'd just like to start with why is this conversation important now? What is happening? We would have thought that, you know, water is for everyone, but why is it particularly focused on the woman this year?
That's a very interesting question, Mikali. So this year is a very significant year for the woman in water. So first of all, this is the first year that the UN is producing a World Water Development Report that talks about gendered access to water. It's been a conversation that's been simmering in the background but has now actually taken the fore because I think people are gaining cognizance that women play a very important role in water. And just to somewhat answer your questions, those alarming numbers about children relate to the situation with women in water. And when we think about it like this, women have roles in water. That's why water is a gender issue. The role of the woman is that she is in charge of fetching the water, but unfortunately that role is not extended to the boardrooms and the decision-making areas where decisions about water are made. And so then because there's a disproportion in how the roles are located, that is why it is one of the reasons why we do not have adequate access to water globally, because those voices are not heard in boardrooms, those voices are not heard in water committees at the rural level so that they can guide how the infrastructure is built to suit the families, because you know women do understand children a bit more. And so with that growing cognizance, people are gaining awareness awareness that women need to be part of that conversation. When you're measuring markers on water access, you need to have different markers. And then there's also the lived experiences of women, which I think Terry will explain really well, on the actual examples of how this lack of water access affects women, and from menstruation to lack of adequate sanitation to limited educational opportunities because they don't have water. This is an issue. And of course, when you elevate women, the whole society is elevated. So that's why the conversation is becoming important. And one more thing, we're getting closer to 2030.
Yes.
And that is when we were supposed to have achieved our SDGs. Yes. But unfortunately, with the goal of water, it's almost as if we're moving backwards. And so everyone is trying to figure out, what is that one thing? What are those issues that are preventing us from gaining 100% access? So yeah, just handing over to Terry to expound on those examples.
So thank you so much, June. I'll just want to pick from what she has said. Achieving SDG, especially 5, it really goes in hand with SDG 6, and that is water and sanitation. And the real issue when you look at the statistics that are there and the role, the way gender roles are defined and how women are the sole, let me say, the #1 contact. People were supposed to provide water. They make decisions at household level. And you see they're the one tasked with the care responsibility. So when you find that women are part of the household decision making, but when it comes to the governance, when it comes to the technical roles, they're not part and parcel of it, then that directly means that the community is going to be affected. And I want to say that water is not gender neutral. That is to mean the role of a woman it's their sole responsibility. And when you look in our Kenyan context, in a county like Kajiado, statistics are there. Women travel up to more than 4 kilometers to fetch water. And the worst thing is they even have to get marks that shows their struggles on their heads. They have a cut, 2 parts, because of the long distance that they go to look for water. And imagine that is 20 liters jerrycan of water. You use like 6 hours to bring that back home. Where is the child at that time when the mother is leaving at 5 a.m.? How are these children going to go to school without the support? And yet the sole responsibility of caregiving has been left to the woman who has to leave home 5 a.m., go to look for water, come back at noon, and the children are still there. So this directly affects how the women contribute economically. And you need to know that water issue is not about drinking. It's about the dignity, the bodily autonomy of the woman, how they can be able to maximize time and use it economically so that they can get their financial independence and ultimately contribute into the leadership spaces.
And it's profound that we're having this conversation. I think this month we've talked about women and agriculture as well. I think we've really tried to put those things together, and we're seeing more women also get into that space and be able to, same thing, when a woman is empowered, the community is empowered. When a woman is able to make food or create something small for herself to be able to feed her family, then she will share with the next house that doesn't have. And it's the same thing with water. And they cannot farm if water is not there as well. So it's not really just about drinking water, as you say, it's also about feeding the community. It's about cleaning up as a woman, being able to just make sure that you are present for your other children as well. So knowing about all of these things that are happening in the country, and you've mentioned Kajiado as well, and that's just one part of this country, there's more. What role does the Millennium Water Alliance now do with this information? What has been done before to just probably create more awareness, or even be able to create sustainable, water supply for the women in these communities?
It's a really great question. So Millennium Water Alliance is an INGO, and essentially we are an association that we have many members, up to 30 right now, and most of them are non-governmental organizations. So because we have that platform to work with many different types of NGOs, private partners and research institutions, we kind of bring in thought leadership in the water space, and we also try and have advocacy around issues like gender and whatnot, gender and water. So what has been done traditionally in the NGO world is to ensure that we drill boreholes closer to the villages so that women don't have to travel so far, working with county governments to strengthen their governance capacities around the issues of water. But then when we look at agriculture, for the longest time we used to really focus on water for domestic use, but then we realized that water is a lever for economic growth. And so then over time, we started working directly with communities to supply them with drip irrigation kits, focusing on women-led groups and groups which are predominantly made of women. But then over time, we also realized that that may not be so sustainable. And so then we're working on a two-tier level, where we work with companies that actually provide the irrigation equipment to open up markets for them, to provide supply-side subsidies so that they can get the equipment out there. And we also kind of task them with making sure that they reach women with this equipment. We also work with financiers to ensure that the women can afford this equipment. We kind of subsidize the cost for the women so that they're able to have the irrigation equipment, that they get the skills to learn how to irrigate their land, and then they are able to then sell that produce. So we try and work across the whole value chain, from the suppliers to the women in the community, and then eventually we link them up with markets. That's kind of some of the work we do.
Okay, and we'll probably get into how effective that is, and probably some of the challenges that you've experienced during the process of doing that, because if it was as seamless as it sounds as we speak, then probably this conversation should have ended 1944,
exactly.
you know. But there's still more probably challenges or new ones that are coming up. But even as we talk about water, it's not just about the provision of it or having it available, it's also having water that is good for consumption. And when we talk about the quality of that, what are we looking at? What does it look like on ground? Is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, no problem. So where we are right now, and let me just give you a few statistics.
Yes.
So in Kenya, we are at 65% access, with the urban areas being at 85% access and the rural areas being at 55%.
Yes.
And that's access known as basic access, meaning that somebody still has to travel to get the water. A portion of the country still accesses very unclean water. This is access from open surface sources, what we call in the water world limited water access. So right now we are not at the top of the ladder. We're supposed to be at safely managed water access, which is where every household with a woman is getting water at the tap, water that is clean and reliable. So as non-governmental organizations, we try and get them basic access to clean water. But there's still a good proportion of the population, especially in rural areas, where, as you can see, we are still at 55%, that still has to access unclean water. And so then I think some of the challenges here is as the government, even as NGOs, people are still focused on quantity. So they just want to get the people the water. Right now, quality is not even a conversation. It's slowly starting to gain traction in the recent past, but it was never that serious because we were looking at this huge problem of people not having the water.
Yes.
But I think over time, this is becoming important. So we have entities that are bringing in filtration units, entities that are bringing in treatment units, desalination. We work in arid areas, and so then we have a lot of salty water, so desalination for cleaner water. So it's been difficult, yes, but once we were slowly addressing the quantity issues, so now we move into the quality
of it, because it goes hand in hand. Terry, you work with communities on ground and women especially to just make sure that they find their way around when it comes to water, or even learning what they need to do with the little that is already available. Maybe you can just share with us what that support looks like on ground when it comes to the communities that you're dealing with.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mikali. At Care Kenya, we are guided by our gender equality framework, where we base our work on building the agency, changing relations, and transforming structures. So in terms of building the grassroots level, and we're also guided by our local agency of women in formal and formal setups, so that they're able to address the issues that they go through and bring the solution on table that is workable for them. So all this is based on context-specific solution. And in that case, we build the agency of women. And by doing so, we're able to have discussions with them, get to hear how they want. June has mentioned about the quantity. For the longest it has been, where do we put the borehole? A central place. This central place, is it safe for women? Or are they going to face gender-based violence on the way in terms of accessing? Why can't we ensure that the supply is there? When I wake up in my house, woman get the water? Is that what the woman want? And how is it going to reduce her time of going and queuing? Because you see also this central place, you cannot have one borehole serving the whole of Kajiado municipality. So the queuing, they're also wasting time there. How do we ensure that water gets into the house? And then number two, how do these women hold accountable the government? Yeah, so in this case, they have been built their voices so that they can speak out and approach the water boards and say, no, hey, you want to put this borehole here. This is not safe for us. This is not convenient for our girls. We want water in our houses. And then another thing, recognizing the second pillar where we want to change relations. Remember, for the longest, water has been patriarchy issue. It is about power, and it's being held male-dominated. I know John will mention about that. In those boardrooms, how many women are there to discuss the issues so that they ensure the decisions that are made there are gender responsive? So when we want to change relation, because you see also there's the backlash why are you coming to our space? You wait in the household. You can get
you're
water,
empowering
right?
her, you're putting her in spaces that they are not used to seeing.
They're not
the woman.
used. So how do we change relationships so that when this woman comes and say, as part of this is what will work for women. This is what our girls need so that they can go to school. So how do we change that relation so that it doesn't become a war? And then you also don't want to make community clash, because people need to live in harmony. So changing relation is very important. And in this case, we have models like social analysis and action, where they both reflect. They look at the norms that are there, and then how do we change? People come out to make the collective action and say that these are the changes that we are going to do, starting with the self-reflection. And then we have another important component, engaging men and boys as allies. This is where the role model men come in, just to change the holistic perspective of relations. And then now we come to the third bit, where is transforming structures. Which policies are there? Are these policies gender responsive? When you're making policies in terms of those water unit and so on, how are they addressing the specific realities and needs of the different genders within those particular areas? And then if the policies are already there and they're speaking to that, how do we now come into the implementation of this policy? So in Care Kenya, we want to touch the holistic approach, whereby when we have that woman in the boardroom, in the management, they know the right thing to speak. They're not just going there, let me use the word that we normally use in our politics, flower girls. No, we want people who come in and speak the specific issues that are really affecting them, because ultimately, Mikali will agree with me, if water, even you in your house, you have piped water, right? You have tapped water.
One day.
It is you.
It's you. Even if you have you'll be calling. But it's you will be seated here, but thinking.
Finding out, how do I solve this?
How do I solve it? So you see, it's really important that we build their capacity, we strengthen it, so that the women at those particular local areas are part and parcel of the decisions that are being made. And in that case, want them to come into the leadership, because when the voices are there, they are going to change and shape the discussion of water, and it will really focus to where it hits the most. And in that case, we are going to have sustainable water, and we are going to have a community whereby people are able, women are able to thrive, because they don't need to think about water. They don't think about the long distances. They can also do the economy. They can do agriculture, farm, and all those things.
I'm listening to this, and it is beautiful that we're actually doing this, that we're in that space already. And you mentioned something about self-reflection and how important that is before the woman. So we grow up, but we are socialized in pockets. And in those pockets, there's things that, roles that have been able to be, we've believed that they define us as women or as men, as young men. So you grew up being taught those things. Changing the mindset of this woman and letting them know that they can actually step up and do these things for themselves. How easy or hard is that? And maybe this is the part that we get to hear some of the success stories of some of these projects, and how we've gotten women to just be able to believe in themselves and know that just because I'm stepping up, it doesn't mean I'm disrespectful to the other gender. It doesn't mean that water does not concern me, that it's for other people as well. That I can just do that respectfully and taking care of everybody else while I do it.
it's not easy. Changing social norms, it's not easy.
Okay.
Because as you have said, the moment you're born, as a boy or a girl, you are already put in a certain box. So you have grown, let's say, for 30 years, knowing that this is my box. Now, this is a time you need to get out of that box and come into a human box. So it's quite a big challenge, I'll say that. And relapsing is also like this. You get out, the next time you're back in. So I'll say there's progress. Let me use an example of Garissa County with the work that we are doing with MOA on Rapid Plus. Through the engagement, through these dialogue sessions, through capacity strengthening, we are seeing women coming out into leadership. They're managing, they're part of water committees in those particular areas that they are working in. We are also seeing women being part and parcel of large-scale irrigation farms. So that means there's success, because we also couple up in Garissa County, the context is also, there's the religion bit, so that is another aspect. But seeing in that particular context that women are coming up to do irrigation, women are part of the management, they're also managing the water kiosks that are there, and you see that is, at least it gives them some money. That means there's some changes. I'll give another example of some projects that we have in Migori County, safe drinking water for children. In those programs, we have seen that women have been included in the decision making, and they're now sitting in water bodies in those challenging the decisions and saying, this is what we want. We need waters in schools and so on. So yes, it's workable, but I'll say it takes a long time. But those
collaborations as well.
Those baby steps that we are taking, we are really appreciating them. Just seeing like a one woman speaking, June is here, is in that sector, domicile there. That is an achievement. But
and you also tagged June into this conversation when you talked about, you know, having women, integrating women, and Rapid Plus is doing this in a big way, where you're integrating women into water initiatives and all of that. And like she said, June is here talking about it in these spaces where we're seeing, we've been seeing a lot of men over the years. How actively are we doing that? And we can also talk about the current program that Rapid Plus is running.
All right. I think just to build on that, I also just want to add one success factor. From an economic standpoint, we do have a woman in Isiolo who was supported to get an irrigation system. And out of all the farmers who are predominantly male, she actually did finish off her payments and her farm actually grew. So you really do see quite a bit of growth with these women. I think for me, the pinnacle would be seeing women in decision-making rooms, especially at places like the UN, you know, the World Bank, people sitting in boardrooms dictating how big programs move at the government. I think one factor that I really wanted to bring out is that out of the 110 water utilities that we have in Kenya, we only have between 4 to 5 female managing directors. For me, that always just, I'm just like, this needs to change.
It needs to change.
But I think hopefully we'll work towards that. So in terms of the program itself, the program is a 5-year program. It's actually coming to an end this year, funded by the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. We focus our work in 5 counties in the drylands of northern Kenya. So that's Marsabit, Turkana, Wajir, Isiolo, and Garissa. And what we are trying to achieve is to improve water access to clean and safe water, and access to ecologically healthy rangelands, because this is the economic unit for the pastoralists in that region. How do we do this? Of course, we have the borehole rehabilitation. We also have very interesting work around policy. So we help the counties to set the framework and the rules by which water is supplied. And I think just to also touch on a point that Terry raised, a success of ours was making sure that some of these water acts are very gender transformative. Previously, they're gender blind. And so then having gender focal points at the county, training them to ensure that when they make legislation and policy, it considers both genders is very important, and we are achieving success in Wajir. We've also looked at the act in Marsabit, so hopefully things will change going forward. Then we also have water for agricultural use, so that's where we have these initiatives around irrigation, farming, and then we have water resource management, because sometimes we're so focused on supply,
Yes.
we tend to forget that we also have to conserve the resources, to conserve the aquifers, the rivers. So that's really what the program focuses on from water. In rangelands, we just try and ensure that the rangelands are managed well and that we have alternative sources of range for when there's drought. So this is improving fodder production, especially in the pastoralist areas.
Great. And as we're doing these amazing things, is there continuous education as well on ground for the women as well, you know, empowerment, you know, knowing your worth, how to even work with the money that you get, because sometimes you will make the money and then take it all back. It's like, and it's not a bad thing, guys. It's you know, take it back to pange sisi wote basi tena, you know. Do we have those continuous conversations that not just about water but also just improving and you know, making them understand or see the bigger picture of what the projects are trying to do?
So we do have that, at least under Rapid Plus. What we do is that we also train the men. And so we have our agenda for co-lead. I have to mention her, Fatuma Abi. She's amazing.
Yes.
So she leads these trainings for both men and women because, as Terry mentioned, it's a mindset shift.
Yes.
So, and you have to have men as your champions.
Absolutely.
So we have men in the room and we just ask them, so what do you understand about this topic? How can you empower women? What does this mean for you? And then we also have platforms or forums where we have separate trainings for men and for women, just to teach them not only about water, but the economics of the society, how to be equitable and how to have equity. So we do have those trainings for both genders. And for me, I think really creating a mindset shift among the men, for me, somehow is the most important thing. Because I feel like the women are already on board with their own agenda. But if they can get champions, and men are very powerful, they're required, they're important, and they're powerful. And if they can, you know, just join women in this cause, the entire society can rise.
Absolutely. And when we have these conversations, it's important to just let them know, or let the world know, that it's not just linear. Because even as we're doing these things, we come from communities. We have fathers, we have brothers, we have siblings that are men, and we need them on board. We really do. As we mark World Water Day on the 22nd of March, what would be the thing that you would want everybody who's tuned in today to just have in mind or take home from this conversation? What do we need to do? Because there's only so much that you can do. And you're doing a great job. Guys, you're doing a great job. But how do we get on board with this, even if we do not work for these organizations, but we have communities as well? I mean, I come from Ukambani. There's something I can try and do at Uko Nyumbani, but what would that look like, or what would it be for you? We can start with you, Terry.
Maybe before I respond to that, I'll just add two things from what Jonas said in terms of continuous capacity strengthening. There's the aspect of mentorship that indeed it's really being done very well, and also exchange programs, the exposures, bringing these people out of those contexts to see that it's working, not just for women alone, even for men, where there's a shift and they come and have those discussions with fellow men that makes them understand that indeed the change is here with us, it's working, and it's not going to harm us in any way. It's just a way of making everybody enjoy their human rights.
Absolutely.
So today, as we are marking this International Day, for me, I just want to emphasize this. People need to know that water is not gender neutral. It's actually about safety, power, opportunities, and for us to have a healthier world where women can live with dignity, enjoy their bodily autonomy, then that means the women voices need to be heard. Let the women step in those boardrooms, because they can't just, if you trust them to make decisions at household level about water, what makes you think they can't make decisions at that level?
So, I mean, I'm taking care of your food, I'm taking care of your children. Why can't I take care of you even in that space? Please continue.
Let them come out in those governance discussions. Let them advocate for gender responsive budgeting. Let them talk about the gender responsive infrastructure, because that is one of the things that Rapid is also doing. They've done that audit and they're talking to engineers. Remember, it was male dominated. So we still have so many engineers who are male. Do they know about gender responsive infrastructures when you're doing that? So let's give these women space. Let's trust them the way we trust them in the household. Let's also trust them in the boardroom. And truly, let me tell you, if the women are given given the voices, they're given chance to participate in meaningful decision making, we're going to have a healthier world. We're going to have a world where everybody is going to enjoy and thrive in their own way. And let me tell you another thing.
Yes.
Water dictates who goes to school, who works, who does what, who earns what money. So with that in mind, as we program as practitioners, let's have that in mind and ensure that women are part and parcel of it, because they are going to be affected.
Yes.
Girls are not going to go to school. Girls are not going to do work because of water. So if we want the society to thrive and the community to be the way we want, let's ensure that women agenda is engendered in water discussions.
Absolutely, absolutely love that.
I love it.
I love it as well. I could see you celebrating it, celebrating her from the other end. So yeah, what would be your, and this would be your parting shot as well?
No problem, and thank you so much, Mikwali. So for my parting shot, I think the main thing for me is that gender is not a tick box exercise, which is something that we've seen repeatedly. It matters, and not just in water, but across many spaces. And so I think mine is just a call to people in the private sector space, the NGO world, and the government, that when we have these gender initiatives, please fund them adequately. It's not just something that you do to meet a quota. Fund them adequately, because the change that can come from this is very, very significant. Make sure you skill people, you give them the technical skills, and you repeat it over and over again. Because the one thing that we've seen is that this is a behavior shift. You've spent 35 years doing one thing, now you have to totally flip. So you need to have adequate funding. It's not a tick box exercise, and you need to have patience. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much, June. Thank you so much, Terry. Loved having this conversation. I pray we had more time, but our time is up.
No problem.
And we celebrate the work that you're doing, and keep at it. We will do what we need to do from the spaces where we are at. If it's that text on social media, if it's being vocal about it, what is it that you're doing in that particular space? That is all we had for you today. We are going to switch into programming. Wako tayari na sisi to just continue celebrating this amazing day. Again, Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. Adios.